every once in a while, someone comes into a field or endeavor that changes the way things are done, whether that's through a new technology or a new way of looking at things or just a passion for whatever endeavor you're in. And that person will have an effect on all those around him. And the people he affects will go out and in turn have effects on everyone around them, that ripple effect that we hear about. My guest on the show today has had a tsunami-like ripple effect on the world of track and field, and especially on my life and on a lot of people who I surround myself with. So today we are here at Ashland University with four-time Olympian and coach of the Ashland University track team, Jud Logan.
Hey, Mark.
Welcome to the show.
Always welcome down, and trust me, I'm not even a little bit ticked off that I think that I'm the third interview to get done here. I think you did Malcolm. I think you did Justin Rohde. So I guess that
Kurt Roberts.
So
no one has been talked about on this show more than you. So like you said, we had Justin, we had Kurt, we had Malcolm, we had Megan Tomei, we had Adrian Wilson, we had Malcolm Majeski, and we've had Zach Pape on the show. So your name has been brought up, Zach Ball. Your name has been brought up more than just about anybody else on the show. So I think your name gets mentioned more than my name gets mentioned on the show. So, but like I said in the opening, you've had this huge ripple effect on all these kids who then go on to have their own success. Like you watch Zach Ball up in Northwoods just, yelling and screaming at people behind him when they're squatting, and it's all that Jud influence on all these kids as they go off and do their thing. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, well, my dad was a big pay-it-forward guy. If we learned anything in our lives growing up in the house with a guy that played for Woody Hayes at Ohio State and was a Green Bay Packer and respected around the community, was that you pay your talents forward. And nothing excites me more to see Jess Breidenthal winning world championships, for Zach Ball to have the success coaching that he has. I think he's one of the brightest, most passionate young coaches in America. Northwood's going to have all they can do to hold on to that guy because schools are going to be calling in the near future, and for years to come. Reminds me a lot of Blaine Magg's trajectory. Mm-hmm. Blaine started out at Findlay. When he told me he wanted to be a coach, I got him a GA job there. Next thing you know, Grand Valley steals him. He's there 3 years, creates unbelievable stuff. Michigan State calls me. Walt Drent, the head coach, calls me and says, Jud, who do I need to hire at Michigan State? And John Newell just left. And I said, Blaine Magg's your guy. So then he was there. He's there for a while, and now he's back at Findlay as head coach. So, all of those type of things. Seeing Zach Pape with you, seeing Chris Powell deadlift over 600 pounds at Summer Strong, and Malcolm coming back and finding his passion as strength coach at Ashland University. Kurt Roberts doing what he did post-collegiately. A.G. Kruger now at South Dakota. I mean, I could just go on and on. I don't want to leave anyone out. Yeah. But at the same time, that is, I've told people, I've come to the realization that I'm a way better coach than I ever was an athlete. And people laugh and go, come on. 4 Olympic teams, broke the American record 13 times. And that was an individual effort. That was, those accomplishments came from standing on the shoulders of giants. But I'm way better at doing this than I was at ever doing that.
Do you have, what is the passion like? Is there more passion for coaching than there even was for throwing?
I never knew that there was going to be. I can't say that it's more passion. I can say that there's more self-fulfillment. When you realize a dream, it's a special moment. I remember 1984, May, Jesse Owens Classic. I break the American record held by Dave McKenzie by 2 centimeters. And I sat at home that night, and I literally just said under my breath, you are the best at this that anyone in the United States has ever been.
Yeah, that's what it means, right?
Right. When you break it down. That's what it means. 5 days later, Bill Green broke it. And it was gone.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, in coaching, not only do I coach on normal 20 to 24 athletes in a meet, not everyone's going to PR, but I'm going to come out with some form of self-fulfillment in every meet. And watching these kids on their 4 or 5 year journey and some longer is the most important part about coaching. So the opportunity to be passionate and to get that self-fulfillment is so much greater coaching than it ever is as an individual athlete.
And we've talked before, and you said that you weren't even sure when this started that this was for you. Like, you didn't, especially at a Division II school, you weren't really sure where this was going to go. So this was not an always in the back of your mind, I'll just go into coaching when I'm done.
No, never. I had intended to buy my parents' house in North Canton, raise my family there, continue to work at the YMCA where I was working before I took this job, maybe get involved with my parents' sporting goods store or open up another part of that. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I never thought that coaching, because I had 1 year of really bad experience coaching high school. And, I turned my back and 3 kids were gone. I'm like, where'd they go?
Yeah.
And they're like, because nothing was mandatory, right? Because if you did, the parents and the booster club and things like that, I just could not deal with the hierarchy in high school. And I left with a really bad taste in my mouth about coaching. And so I said, maybe I'm just not good at it. I'll just keep doing what I do best, keep throwing. And then Bill Gallagher called me up, gave me the opportunity to start here 24 years ago. And I promised him that I'd do it for a year. He goes, that's all we need. Well, it took about 6 weeks. And I looked at my wife and I said, I cannot believe I've not been doing this my entire life.
Yeah.
This is what I'm meant to do. And I came in, I had a great situation year one. Becky Ball was a freshman here. Dusty Cover was a senior. Won a national title. She'd been 7th, I think, before. My first year here, she's national champion. Kurt Thompson sets the NCAA record that still stands to this day in the javelin throw. And he was here. And I don't know jack about javelin,
right,
but all I know is that I got him to throw 7 meters farther than he'd ever thrown and break the national record that still stands today.
Yeah.
So Mike Miley, Scott Burnett, these guys in the early phase. And then when Bill Gallagher resigned, I was offered the head coach, and I never wanted to be head coach because I saw the way he worked and the hours that he put in. And I just didn't think that I was cut out for that kind of thing. Well, after about 6 hours, I realized I couldn't do it his way. I had to do it my way. I had to run the entire track and field program as if everybody was a thrower. And that's what I did. And I also was able to go to my assistant coaches, and I was able to delegate authority. Once I did that, I said to my wife, I said, man, I never thought I wanted to be a head coach. I will never take another job where I'm not the head coach.
Yeah.
And I've been offered triple my salary by some SEC teams, by some Big Ten teams, by some Big 12 teams. But all of them were as come be our throws coach.
Yeah.
And I will never relinquish control that I have in scholarshiping, that I have in budget, that I have on impacting over 110 kids in our program. So
you're your own boss too.
I am my own boss.
What did you mean by you had to treat them all as if they were throwers?
I had to treat the entire program. Running a track and field program is like playing fantasy football. Okay, so we all play fantasy football, and we draft these people, and sometimes you got to keep emotion out of it because he's your favorite player, but he costs too much. People who run track and field programs like that don't do well. Okay, so I had to treat the entire budgeting process. I didn't want to be a throws program. I wanted to be an excellent track and field program that had great throwers, and to do that. There was a lot of stuff in the different areas, the sprints, the jumps, things like that I don't think were being held to as high a standard as the throwers were in terms of work ethic. And so I challenged my assistant coaches and I challenged my staff that, look, I'm going to put scholarship money into your area, but if you don't produce results like we're producing in the throws, then that money will not be available. And so I just took the whole program and had found a way to have the most successful throwing program in Division II history, but now I wanted to be a team. I wanted to have more of a team. And, my first 11 years here, we didn't get on the podium as a team. In my 14 years as head coach, what I'm proudest of is those guys sitting right over there. Those big NCAA runner-up trophies that we just had at our track camp this last weekend to show the kids. I think we're at like 17 podium finishes between our men and women in my 14 years as head coach. So I don't want to be known as a throws program. I want to be known as a great program. I want to be able to, I sit down and I text and I talk with Miles Pringle, the greatest 400-meter runner in Division II history. And I want to be able to tell him, this is what I learned. Watch out for this pothole, because when I was at your level getting ready to make the next move, these are some of the mistakes I made. So I want to be able to influence everyone on this program, but I am not a micromanager. I tell my coaches what's expected of them. I turn my back and say, go. And then I go focus in on my throwers. We come together at NCAAs, and, I've got a great staff. I've had some turnover because after 2 or 3 years of doing incredible things in my program, people can offer them more money, and they're not the head coach. So I understand why they have to move on. But right now, I'm blessed with a great staff.
It's the same thing that like Belichick goes through at New England, where they kind of poach your guys, but you have to kind of let them go and good luck. And,
you got to coach up the next group that comes in. Let them know what's expected.
The best when I was working, I worked for 2 high school coaches over my stint as a high school throws coach. And the first one came out of Baldwin Wallace, and he was the track coach at Baldwin Wallace. And when he came in, he delegated everything. He hired the best people he could. He had me in the throws, and he had Terry Kemp in the distance, who had multiple state champions, and another guy who was a fantastic pole vault coach. And he just would come down to the field once a week and go, "Do you need anything?" "No, coach, I'm fine." And then he just expected you to score points at the big meets. And it was such a relief to be able to, come to you or come to somebody else and implement a program, and nobody standing over your shoulder and say, no, you're doing that wrong. You have to do it this way. And I think that's a recipe for success if you get the right guys in place.
It is. And, that's the only way I know how to run things. My father, like I mentioned before, was a great high school All-American, collegiate All-American, draft choice of the Cleveland Browns, got traded to the Green Bay Packers before he ever got in uniform with Cleveland. And he was not a big yeller and a screamer. He was a motivator. What do you need? Start something, finish it. I mean, that sounds so simple, but how many parents today let their kids quit anything that gets hard?
Yeah.
You don't have to, like he told us, he goes, you don't have to keep playing baseball, but you will finish this season. You will never miss a practice, and you will give your best effort.
Yeah.
That's all I expect. Now, at the end of the season, if you come to me and say, Dad, man, I don't want to play baseball. Great. Let's go channel your passion someplace else. Whether that's the band or the chess club or whatever your passion is.
Yeah.
Let's go find it. And so that's all I do within the program is just try to challenge the kids to find what their passion is. We just basically, as of today, Lindsay Baker just left yesterday on her way to Finland for the USA Junior Worlds.
Right, yeah.
17-11, 56-4 in the shot put as a redshirt freshman for us, going over to compete in the Junior Worlds. And so that kind of completes the cycle. And now I've got kids that are starting up summer training. And, so we're opening up a new chapter. And every time you open up, if you're reading a good book, man, and if it's a good book, you cannot wait to start the next chapter. Well, this is a really good book we got going on here.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to start the new chapter. Every summer, by the end of summer, before school starts, there will be paper covering every inch of this wall. There will be notes on every inch of that whiteboard. And I will sit in the middle like a mad scientist, and I will keep 90% of what we did last year. And then I will spend the last 2 weeks of summer putting stuff up that interests me, stuff that I've seen. Like, I mean, not to blow up his ego, but I've been capturing stuff that Carrie Overfelt's doing.
Jesus Christ.
I know. Sorry, Mark. I save it to my collection on Instagram.
Don't know what kind of text messages I'm going to get from that asshole now that you said
Well,
that.
he did send me 3 or 4 really nice shirts and a nice hoodie after I gave him some advice. But he's just one of like 30 guys that I follow. And then I'm listening to podcasts. I'm reading articles. I'm talking to Paula Quinn. I'm talking to Louie. I'm talking to Matt Wenning. And I'm not going to just throw everything that I've ever learned out the window and go, you know what, you're right. Let me try that. That's not fair to the kids.
Sure.
But I owe them to figure out a 10% change. They know we're going to do something different every year. And that's the most exciting part to them is that what's Coach going to have new? Man, I've been like ordering stuff left and right here. I just ordered 9 hip circles from Mark Bell.
Yeah, right.
And as his July 4th sale going on, I got some of them last year, and I really liked using the hip circles.
Yeah.
I've got the center mass bells, and I don't care if you have center mass bells from Sornex or you're a fat bell guy from Donnie Thompson.
Get involved in that stupid argument.
Yeah, they're both great products, right?
Yep.
So we did a lot of stuff last year with center mass bells, and I just ordered 2 earthquake bars. We've never used an earthquake bar in the Ashland program.
I've seen them, but I've never got my
So I've got the mini short bands from I ordered from Rogue, and so off we go. And it's not going to be like it's going to be like 1 block of our training we'll use the earthquake bar. If I like the results, we might put it back in for another 3-week blocks in January or February. So it's just one little tool. We're going to throw some stuff out last year we tried that I didn't like. Stuff that I think is getting redundant, causing pattern overload, too much training in that same vein, and we're going to explore some stuff. But 90% of what we do is set in stone. I will spend 90% of my time trying to figure out that last 10%.
And that's one of the things that I took away from you at a very early age was that philosophy. And every time a kid who comes out of your program who's coaching other athletes comes in and talks to me and has been on the podcast, you'll hear that over and over again. That 90% is set in stone, and I spend the other 90% figuring out that 10%.
Yep.
And that's one of those things that we all have got from you, and all of us really focus on that. And I'm the same way. I'm just trying to constantly figure out where the tweak is that's just going to make it just a little bit better. And, when you look at my program, you're obviously going to see a lot of Ashland influences, a lot of Jud Logan in there, a lot of Paula Quinn through Jud Logan, too. You're going to see a lot of Matt Wenning. You're going to see a lot of Louie Simmons. But I think if any of the 3 of you came in and looked at it and go, that's not my program.
Yeah.
But it's the years of taking it and smishing it together and then tweaking it to get it to where it's
Isn't that what makes a great coach, though?
It's so much fun, too.
Anyone can regurgitate conjugate.
Right.
But if your program looks... I remember 15 years ago, all these programs came in, throws programs, came in to see Louie, learned the conjugate method, took the exact program that all those Kenny Patterson and all those Strong Dimmel and all those guys were doing, took it back to their programs, and their results went completely in the shitter.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Because they weren't using the same supplements.
Sure.
They weren't able to recognize when they were at an overtraining, and that they didn't understand enough. It's like learning to speak a language, and then after 48 hours of learning Spanish, you go down to a cop and you're asking directions when you actually just said, go fuck yourself. Right? Yeah. And you wonder, how the fuck did I get in jail?
Right.
Right?
Yep.
That's what's learning. So if you don't know with absolutes like Cal Dietz and triphasic, I'm pretty good with that stuff. Mm-hmm. I met Cal. I had an open line that other people did, and we did triphasic. We had some really good results until we didn't.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, oh no, yeah, totally.
So I'm just like, you know what? Let's go back to being who we are.
Right.
Let's learn everything we can from Cal Dietz. Let's make sure that we do a good portion of eccentrics. Charles Poliquin.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we do a good amount of isometrics. Let's make sure that we do, some bands and some chains. But let's not say that we're this program, that program. We're trying to produce throwers.
And Kerry, speaking of Kerry Overfeld again, we went down and we had dinner with Louis, and he loved the fact that we were throwers, and he would never have prescribed do my program the way I do my program for powerlifters. He was giving us all these tips and things that you have to be smart enough to know what you don't know and what you need, and take what you need from that and turn it into your own program. You can't just, like you said, just try to do what he was doing with Kenny Patterson and expect you're going to get any kind of results from that, or the same kind of results. Yeah, it's
I always tell coaches, I said, look, go into a seminar, listen to a podcast, and find your 1%.
Yeah.
People will always say, I just listened to Jordan Peterson podcast, and I'm just blown away. I have a total new perspective on life. I went to see a guy, and I can't figure his name right now. Dave Tate hosted him, and he was a powerlifting guy, older guy in his 40s. And I went down there, and because he had this real inspirational speech on Facebook, and he had talked about all these traumas in his life, and I'm like, that's one of the most inspirational guys I've ever heard. So I went down there. The entire day was spent on where your feet are in a wide.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh boy, what did I get myself? I was the only non-power lifter in the room.
Yeah.
Well, about 5 hours in, Dave Tate walks in. He wasn't even there in the beginning. Dave Tate walks in and starts training with this other guy. So I started doing one of these swing around in my chair, and I watch these guys, and they're doing a banded RDL. And I've never seen anyone do a banded RDL, and it was causing this huge amount of tension in the last 10% of the top of the RDL, and I go, that's brilliant.
There's your 1%.
There's my 1%.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I write this down in my book, and I'm like, okay, that was so worth it. So it's like anybody listening today, if there's throws coaches that are listening, don't go, okay, I heard Jud Logan's podcast. I know exactly how we're going to... No, man. Find your 1% and then go find the other 9. But find some foundation. Get to your own 10. Get to your own 10.
There's got to be some artistic ability behind it, too. It's an art to be able to come up with your program. And I don't understand... just taking someone's program without tweaking it and without putting your own spin on it. To me, that there's no art in that. It's just, like you said...
There's no art and there's no confidence.
Sure, right.
And, the biggest thing is that if Poliquin taught me anything is, I always bring in my high-level athletes. I bring in a Megan Tomei. I'll bring in an Alex Hill, a Nick Zach, an Elijah Talk, Natalie Hellenthal, Mackenzie Lee. And I'll be like, how we doing, Coach? This is one of the best programs that we've done. I said, yeah, but some of the younger kids are really starting to struggle. Is it too much? And they're like, we've got a week and a half left on this block. I think that they're going to come out the other side. So I rely on their experience of having gone through this, because a lot of this stuff I didn't do when I was training. So I don't know how bands affect your body. I don't know how chains affect your body. I don't know, because that stuff wasn't available when I was in my peak. And so I'm always checking, and sometimes if I start to see some of my top level athletes getting a little bit worn down, then I have to try to figure out, do we shorten the block? Do we cut back on the percentages? Or do you push through? Because sometimes you want to dig a little bit deeper underneath that pavement if you're going to build a hill that's going to turn into a mountain.
Super compensation.
You got to be able to have super compensation.
Yeah.
And so, that's the real art of coaching, of strength training anyways, is figuring out how much can I push. And John Smith is probably the pioneer of what he's done with the women's throwing events is beyond what anybody, and people...
Best guy no one's heard of.
Oh my gosh, people hate him. He He's going in and he's looking sometimes into the inner city for girls that were great volleyball players and basketball players that maybe got too heavy. These are his words, not mine. And just developing them. And, you know, when I trained Jackie Jeschling Alm for the Olympic Games, the heaviest hammer she ever threw was a 10. John's taking freshman girls who've never seen the hammer before and putting a 16-pound hammer into their hands to create this core strength and this stability. And everyone's like, oh, that's crazy. You know, I would never do that. That would break my girls and this, that, and the other thing. And he's safety squatting 600 pounds with girls. And I could never do that. I'd get fired. And then all of a sudden you look at Gwen Berry and
is Gwen Berry one of his? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Gwen Berry, Deanna Price, who's now training with Lambert at Southern Illinois. Okay. Deanna was one of John's college athletes. And so the top two girls in the hammer right now in the United States are John's.
Is he still at Southern?
No, they left and went to Ole Miss.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So they're down south now, and J.C. Lambert's the throws coach.
Gotcha.
So, you know, John Smith has done an incredible job with pioneering new developments with using heavy implements and light implements, and he's got a different system than what everybody's doing. But as much success as he's having, I know exactly what he's doing, but it's not how I choose to run my program.
Sure.
But if you don't think that I've stolen from him, I've got my redshirt freshman girls throwing 16-pound hammers this summer. Coaches are seeing Snapchats and calling me, or like, that girl's handling a 16-pound hammer like it's a 10 or a 12. So you've got to be willing to evolve.
Right.
I mean, I think back, if I could go back, and if Jud Logan could coach Jud Logan, I honestly believe that I could have exceeded Sadiq's 86 meters. If Jud Logan today could go back and coach Adrian Blewett and Jackie Jeschling, I believe that they would have both thrown 8 to 10% farther. Yeah. But the kids that now, I mean, when I was coaching Adrian and Jackie, I was still in a learning curve.
Sure.
Well, that curve is starting to flatline a little bit, right? So I feel like I've gotten smarter. So when I get a Lindsay Baker, I know some of the mistakes I made with Adrian, some of the mistakes I made with Megan and Jackie, and all the way back to the first kids I ever had. These kids are reaping the benefits of me getting smarter.
Sure, yeah.
And so
for all the injuries and screw-ups that those guys made.
Right.
You know?
So every year we're looking, how do we get better? How do we recover?
Yeah.
Well, Megan went out and got her ISTEM, soft tissue manipulation, and that's why we've got a table in here. We've got Donnie Thompson's ex-wife. We've got
that's a giant
steel rod.
Not an actual ex-wife.
Body tempering.
Yeah, it's like 100-pounder or something.
170.
170.
Yeah. And so we're body tempering. I've got a rapid release. We've got Theraguns. Kids are rolling on lacrosse balls. Anything that you can do to shift the body over to parasympathetic is going to cause greater recovery. No.
I didn't know what a full
We had deep tissue massage.
Yeah.
And sleep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it was funny because we were at Summer Series this year and a bunch of great hammer throwers came in, and Jordan Crayon, one of my former athletes that was national champion who works at Orange Theory Fitness up in Toledo now, he's sitting up on my truck and he's preaching about what he learned in this program. He's speaking specifically about me. And he goes, you want to hear the difference between what we all are doing and what Coach Logan did? The very first thing that Coach Logan told me is that since he was 23 years old and started training with Al Schotterman for the 84 Olympics, to this day gets an average of 8 to 9 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
It's something I've empirically known my entire life, that is how I recover, right. And that's why I was able to make a 4th Olympic team at 41 and almost made a 5th Olympic team at 45, is recovery is such a huge component. And so for me, my body knew what to do. No one told me, make sure you get 8, 9 hours of sleep. It's just something I did. I tried I tried the Bill Belichick 4 hours, get in the office at 5 a.m.
Jocko Willick, take a picture of your watch at 4:30 in the morning.
It didn't work for me.
Yeah, sure.
It didn't work for me. So, rest is probably rest and whole foods are probably the two most underutilized things by kids today because they're looking for the quick fix.
Yeah.
They're looking for, so if I do the Theragun on my back, my injuries will be gone. No, if you get more sleep and you get more nutrient-dense whole foods, instead of asking me what supplement to take, you're going to be a way better athlete with just those two things, which, guess what, are free.
Yeah, that's always the first thing. And it's weird because parents will come in and what supplement should he be taking? And I'm always like, I don't take anything.
Right.
I'm 44 years old, and look, let's put it all out there on the table. I was in a strength sport with super strong guys, and they weren't taking anything from GNC. If they were taking anything, they were shooting something in their arm. And whether you like that or not, that's reality. That's what they were doing. Nobody had, the GNC big bottle of protein on their shelf. I mean, so when parents come to me and they ask that question, what should he be taking? Shit. The kid's 15 years old. People are paying hundreds of dollars a month to have the same testosterone levels that kid has. Just let him sleep and feed him good and let him go nuts, know. And there's nothing I can do at 15 years old to screw this kid up.
Nope.
One of the things I've learned over the years is that 15 years old, if you screw up a 15-year-old kid and can't get him better,
you're really bad.
You're horrible.
Yeah.
So it's. What do you see with kids coming out of school as opposed to, say, when Jake Brooks and Adrian came out of school? What kind of athletes? Is there a difference between the incoming freshmen now?
I just got asked this question the other day, and the answer might be a little surprising. I don't think kids have changed. I think coaches have refused to grow, meaning that if you don't understand what's going on with Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you don't know the reality of what these kids are doing. When I went to college, it was every paper was typed on a typewriter. There were no cell phones. So if you're not aware of what's going on and how much technology is evolved, I always tell people, and I'm writing about it in my book that I hope to finish in the near future. In the near future, there will never be another Al Schotterman. Okay, there will never be a guy that has such an incredible belief system because we were doing sets of 15 in the snatch.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's so wrong.
Yeah.
Today, if you do that, they're on the internet. They're asking kids at Michigan, hey, do you guys do 15s in the snatch? Well, if I say you do 15s in the snatch, God damn it, you're going to do 15s in the snatch.
Sure.
Right? The internet has created such a huge vortex of information, which some is good, but some of it is hugely challenging because these kids start to question the coach. And as I state in one of the early chapters in my book, a bad coach believed in is better than a good coach that doesn't have his team. You could be the worst coach in the world, but if your team's ready to run through a brick wall for you and you tell them that doing these truck pushes 5 days a week is going to make us the most badass team, and every kid believes it, guess what? You're probably going to be badass.
Sure, yeah.
Now, if a good coach that has all the science can then, in fact, get his team, then that's when championships are won. Mm-hmm. So it's so much the buy-in of the kids on your team. It's everything. And that's what I had with the Jake Brooks, Jackie, Rich Alm, Adrian. The buy-in was 99.9. If you can get a 90% buy-in with today's kids, you're doing an amazing job as a coach. Right. Because they're going to be looking on the internet for that other 10%. And it's good that they question and they learn, but at some point, you got one butt. You can't ride two horses. Mm-hmm. And so if kids try to ride too many different horses, like they're looking and what he's doing, they're trying to, you get a rotational shot putter, and I'm coaching it the way I coach rotation, and I've learned from Randy Barnes, and I've roomed with Adam Nelson, and I've roomed with Reese Hoffa, and all
who look very different.
Yeah, all that look very different. And if you're trying to change every day and practice who you look like and go on a journey that I have no idea where the hell you've gone so far off the map that we've set, you will never have success. And as soon as you don't have success, you're going to blame me. So sometimes just the belief, I can't stress it enough. You have to get a belief in your program. There's some like Ashley Muffet, Duncan, Ashley Muffet, Kovac soon.
She was a savage, man.
She was.
Jesus Christ.
And, I coached her through high school with her weight training and had her for a short period at Ashland. But the bottom line is she's got buy-in now at Ohio State. Watch out.
Yeah.
Watch out, because Ohio State's throwing program the last 20 years before she got there has been a joke.
Yeah.
Thank God, because it made the rest of our people's job easy to recruit kids. Now she gets who she wants, and we get the rest. And then you got Nathan Fanger at Kent State, and you got all these other coaches. Derek Vickers is doing a great job at Bowling Green, and Blaine's at Finley, and it's getting harder and harder. But until you can be in that program and get that buy-in, because Ashley didn't have it year one, but boy does she have it now.
Yeah. We just talked about your camp, and you asked what Hayden's experience was like that. Yeah, the internet is a cause for kids to question, but I think the way you talk to these kids, you have 100 new Ashland recruits who you may not even know their names yet,
right?
But the way you talk to them at the camp and the passion and the excitement you have for the event, you've just created 100 kids that want to come to a Division II school.
Yep.
And maybe not ever get paid to throw.
Right.
But they all want to come.
Look, I started track camp because I saw a huge void. It was one of those moments I sat in the office my first year here and I go, man, what would I have wanted at that age? And the answer was help. Mm-hmm. And I had one of those coaches in high school that showed up every day, would stay as long as we wanted to throw, but he didn't know anything. Right. He didn't know anything. He was just a guy that was trying to get his $2,000 supplemental contract.
Yeah.
Okay? So I know that there's a lot of kids across the state of Ohio that have that same type of coaching. And I'm just like, man, what can I do to help? So how much can you do in 3 days? Mm-hmm. Well, you can, I tell every kid that comes to my camp, if you leave my camp and you have not learned the basics, let's say that you are a shot putter and you have never done rotational shot put before. If you leave my camp after 3 days and you can't go home and teach your friend who's never done rotation the top 5 things to look for and actually coach them to a full, then you can have your money back.
Well, here's the thing. So I decided as a 7th grader, as a 6th grader, I would only let him do a standing throw. As a 7th grader, me and Zach Pape sat down and we said, let's just get him to the point where he can do a good wheel drill this year. He comes down to your camp in the winter, and the first day he's full rotating. I walked into here.
I saw the look on your face.
And was like, holy shit, the kid's rotating. I've never done anything with this kid. And in one day, how long is that?
5 hours.
Yeah, 5 hours. He's rotating.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, and for those of you who aren't involved in throwing, the rotational shot put is one of the most difficult things to learn in sport, I think. Yeah. There's so many moving parts and things that can go wrong, and the ball's so close to your center mass that, if you screw up even a little bit, it's gone, So, I think that's a testament to what you and your people can do with these kids when they get here.
I have 35 kids on staff. People always say, man, you must be making money, so much money doing track camp. And I'm like, yeah, I am. To the tune of, in the last 24 years, I've donated back to Ashland University $250,000
wow.
from my track and field camp to support our budget.
Wow.
Okay? So, and then pay people in my staff well, pay myself well. And everyone's like, well, I've tried to do a camp, but I can't make it successful. I don't understand how you do it. And I said, because you're looking at every way to cut costs. Give the white T-shirt with the one color lettering. Don't hire too much staff or you won't make enough money. Don't do the extras because that just gobbles up your profit. My camp is grown by word of mouth. We have a trip to the rec center every year where the kids are doing the rock wall, they're playing, they're swimming, they're diving off the high dive. The next night we've got an all-you-can-eat ice cream party with a DJ that I've hired and prizes, and we're trying to give the total experience. It's very expensive to run my camp because I have 35 people on staff. So we have a high instructor to athlete ratio. We give a 3-color T-shirt that's on the front and the back, and the other coaches come to me and go, if I see one more of Jud Logan's track camp shirts when I go to recruit these kids, I'm going to kill myself. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm so proud of our camp system because not only do the kids learn and get better, but we try to give a track and field experience that makes them go home and remember what we learned. Like if you went home tonight, you should say to Hayden, good, better, best. And he should be able to look you in the eye and say, good, better, best. Never rest until your good is better and your better is best. Think about that. So simple, but it's just a goal system of trying to get better every day.
It was a pretty cool moment because I've heard you say that a million times. I've seen it on T-shirts down here and on the wall and everything like that. And he gets in the car, and the first thing I asked him is, what did you learn? And that's what he said.
That's what he said to you.
That's the first day. It was just like, that's an emotional experience, because you've been a huge influence on me. And I have all these kids around me who I've worked with that have come to Ashland. And to hear, your son say that, that's the thing that he got from camp,
We have 8 sessions at camp, right? I didn't just send the kids to the session every day. I met with them for 10 minutes before every session. And every session, I had a little soapbox preachy moment of what I think you have to do if you want to get better. And that's one of the things we reiterated every camp. Or every meeting that we had. And then we talked about the schedule, and we talked about, remember, this is not a competition. And so you don't just send these kids out. You have to give them the tools. These kids come in, and one kid comes, and he's got a toolbox that has a screwdriver in it. And then another kid comes, and he's got a screwdriver, a wrench, a hacksaw. And then you got a third kid that comes in, and he's got all brand new power tools. He has any idea how to use any of them, right? So all of these kids are coming in with different levels of toolboxes, and it's my job is to help fill up the ones that don't have very much, and to take the ones that are blessed to have a lot, but to teach them how to use what they have. Yeah. And so that's what the Jud Logan track and field camp system is. Next year will be year 25 that we've done this camp, and I wish I would have done what I should have done, and that is count state champions and Olympians and people that have come out of this camp. The numbers would be staggering. Yeah. Scholarship kids and all that stuff. But look, I'm not a big stat guy.
Well, it's hard enough to count all Americans that have come out of this place. I was trying to do some research on that, and forget about it. You're done in a couple minutes realizing that there's so many All-Americans.
Well, here's a funny story. I shared this down at Five Rings Barbell in Georgia when I did a talk. Once a year, I have a thing called a tape ceremony. And not many people know this story because I told them I was going to keep it private. But here it is. Every year, I count up the All-Americans, and I write that number on a piece of tape. And I put that up on the wall, and I don't touch it for another year. And people come in, they'll look, and they'll just, no one ever even asks. They just look, right? So here's what the tape looks like. So as I show this to you, this is what was hanging last year. 23 years, 254 All-Americans, 49 national champions. That's 11 All-Americans a year and 2.13 national champions per year. So I haven't even had time to do the tape ceremony. But when I do change it, it'll be year 24. 265 All-Americans, still sitting on 49 national champions. I had a runner-up this year. And then, so that's the only time I ever think about is this little piece of tape.
Right, yeah.
And I change this tape every year, and I have this little ceremony for myself. And I'll put the new one up, clap my hands, pat myself on the back, and go, what can you do to add to that tape? Yep. It's a once-a-year little ceremony that I do. And, so I can't recite the numbers. I have to look, but now currently we're at 265 All-Americans just in the throws.
Yeah.
And looking for that 50th national champion coming up this next year. And we've got a number of kids that could be the first person to top that off.
I've sent you kids before, and, you hear people say you can't turn chicken shit into chicken salad. And I think a lot of the kids I would have sent you over the years, other programs would have looked at as chicken shit.
Right.
Zach Ball, he looks a little bit undersized to throw the discus. Michelle Stark, what the hell is she? She's a 38-foot shot putter, and she's, short, and, kids like that. And then they come out 4 years later as All-Americans.
Multiple all-time All-Americans.
And I think that's the, you talked about how, maybe you can get into this a little bit, how, you were never a state champion. You never even really saw the hammer until college. It was your last year of college before someone had actually had any faith in you that you were going to be good.
Right.
I think that sets you up a lot to be a good coach later in life, when you've had to struggle this whole time to figure out how to be good. You're not just some athlete that the gods have shown this light on and everything you've done has been a success your whole life.
Every program is gifted over the years to find kids that are no-brainers. Okay? So when I was able to get a Brian Vickers who was state champion and a Kurt Roberts who was state champion, it was pretty clear the path that they were on, and they were going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
What defines you as a coach is, what do you do with the kids that nobody wants? What do you do with the Zach Balls and the Michelle Starks of the world that aren't being recruited? I've told this story before, but I tried everything I could to get Zach Ball to quit because his attitude was terrible.
He was not much into the whole exercise and training thing.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't much into being told what to do either.
Right.
He had a horrible attitude. And I go, I will break this kid. He will be out of here so fast. And he had his little moment where I challenged him in front of the whole team. He looked over at me with that fuck you face and did 3 more reps and looked over at me again and then did 1 more rep. And then the kids on the team carried him out of the weight room on his shoulder. And that kid was never the same.
Yeah, right.
He was just like, man, I can do this. Right? So, what was your original question? I just get so excited when I start talking about those kids.
I think that, well, like you said, you had your Kurt Roberts where you knew that kid's going to be. That's easy.
Yeah.
Still a lot of work, obviously, but easy. I think a mark of a good coach is being able to take these kids that nobody wants,
right,
and in 4 years turn them into All-Americans.
And, that's the biggest thing. I got a kid right now, Alex Hill. You mentioned had a great influence on your son at camp. Alex was a kid that was recruited by a couple of Division III schools and me. And now all of a sudden he's thrown 73 feet in the weight, 184 feet in the discus, 210 feet in the hammer, and all the D1 coaches are like, man, where did you get him? What's the story on him? Man, I wish I would have recruited him. He was there.
Right.
He was there. And
well, what did you see in him? What sparked your interest?
I saw athlete. Mm-hmm. I saw high GPA. I saw and somebody that I knew that would come in and work really hard for me. And his high school coach had sent me a video, and I'm like, don't show this around. He was making so many mistakes, and he was long, he was athletic, he was 6'2".
He was the kid. You had 2 kids that went off in the weight over the winter, right? He was the young black kid that did.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Jesus
Alex
Christ,
Hill.
That kid's explosive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Brent Fairbanks, who
right.
was a true freshman, threw farther than any freshman in the country this year, threw 72 feet as a freshman with the 35-pound weight. So, I've just been blessed that a lot of these kids find their way to my path. Megan Tomei was recruited by everybody, right? But that doesn't mean that she was going to be a no-brainer, because then you have injuries that go on with that and overtraining, and we learn together. She's probably the one that'll leave my program having picked my brain the most and taken the most amount of knowledge with her. And she's going to be somebody in the next couple years that I'm going to be, hey, Meg, what do you hear about this? Oh, yeah, let me tell you. She's going to be my little Wikipedia and my Google search engine to help me fill in that 10%. She'll be a valuable asset to me till the day I stop coaching.
We talked about that, how, your tree starts to evolve. And, I go to Malcolm now and ask him questions. And Zach is, a kid who's constantly researching stuff.
Yep.
Hey, what do you think about this? And it's amazing that these kids you brought up and train are now the people you go to run stuff by.
Right. And it's just the evolution. And some coaches won't do that because of the ego thing. I always tell my kids, I said, look, we're going to find a way to get it done. In the fall of last year, we brought Justin Rohde in. Mm-hmm. And he did a little seminar for our kids. And I'm like, I can't believe you brought Rohde in, man. He doesn't throw with your same technique. I go, no, but I brought Randy Barnes in before. I brought Craig Carter in before. I brought Kurt Roberts in before. I brought in Kibwe Johnson. I brought in all these people that have come and left an imprint on their kids. And not one time did I think that my kids might doubt what I said because Kibwe said something different.
Yeah.
Why have the ego to not expose those kids because they might differ? Kibwe's opinion on throwing the hammer, even though he was trained by me for 4 years, is way different than what mine is.
Well, him and Rhodey are both Bondarchuk.
They are.
Right? Yeah.
And so those guys, but my kids need to hear his perspective. If my kids learned anything from Kibwe, when you were throwing 80 meters, what did it feel like? And he goes, the ball just went whoosh. Okay? They need to hear that. Yeah. They need to know that it's that simplistic once things are going well.
Right.
The ability to get to the top of that mountain where you can hear the whoosh and feel the whoosh, that's my job. But understand, once you do get there and feel that, that's Valhalla. Yeah, and so these kids need to learn from all these kids. And I've got a big surprise for my kids. And in fact, if you remind me, I'll let you know, man. You want to come down and hear this fall.
I don't even know who it is, but I'll be there.
Brandon Lilly.
Oh, yeah.
Brandon Lilly, man. I'm telling you, this guy, I think he's a 3,000 powerlifter, the big total guy or whatever. He's on such a different journey than powerlifting now with being healthier and way smaller than what he was. Right. But he's running 10Ks and then going in, entering powerlifting meet 2 weeks later. Coming back from numerous surgeries on his knee. He's got such an incredible story. And, he's my go-to guy right now. Mm-hmm. When I need a little bit of inspiration or I think he needs a little bit of inspiration, we text each other back and forth. I've heard him speak 2 times. Both times have just been like, damn. And he's in Kentucky. Right. So I said, I need you to come visit with the Ashland. Jud, I'll be there. Give me the date. Give me the time. I will come. Yeah. So every year, I don't care if that costs me $1,000 or $500. These people that I bring in, the things that we do, I'm willing to spend money made from camp to make these things accessible to kids on my team. So I'm hoping he's one of the 10% that he gets through to somebody and they hear his statement, they hear his mission, they hear where his goals took him in life.
Because he hasn't had an easy path. That guy. By his own admission, he's fucked up a lot in his life. He's done some crazy, stupid shit, and it seems now. And I had a conversation about Brandon with another friend of mine, and he was going to be hanging out with him. And I said, "Well, what do you think about him?" He goes, "I don't know. I'll let you know when I get back." And this guy had some preconceived notions about him. When he came back, he said, "I think the guy's on the ball now. I think he's got his shit straight. And I think he's a valuable asset." And they became friends.
Yeah, he's just I don't call Brandon for advice on training.
Right.
I call Brandon for advice on life.
Yeah.
And to make sure we're boboth heading in the right direction.
He's struggled. He's gotten through struggles, and
we all have, or we all are going to. Yep. I've got a lot of goals. I'm going to be 60 next summer, so I'm going to be on the path of trying to break the world record for age 60 hammer. And so up on the whiteboard, I've got Project 60 world record. Not afraid to share my starting weight of 277 pounds. I did a 60-hour fast. At the end of my fast, I weighed 265.4. I did a July 4th refeed. Weighed in the next morning at 269 pounds. And now I'm trying 11 a.m. to 7 a.m. Dr. Rhonda Patrick, intermittent fasting.
I do it every day.
My goal is to get to 265 pounds solid by August 1st, and I'm implementing the who do you want to give credit for the 10-minute walk after every meal? Stan Efferding?
Yeah, right.
But who gets the credit? I don't know who gets the credit. I know Brandon does it every day.
Yeah.
I know that Mark Bell's doing it. I know that Efferding's doing it. I had my very first one today.
Yeah.
I had my very first one today. I had 2 8-ounce patties of lean grass-fed beef and did a 10-minute walk. And that's number 1. And then I've got to have all my meals in by 7 o'clock tonight, and then I'm going to go for another 10-minute walk.
Are you doing like the carnivore diet or
I'm not. I'm just through August 1st. I didn't want to take any food off the table. Mm-hmm. If I want a piece of bread, I want a piece of bread. Mm-hmm. Now I haven't had any today, and I don't know how long I'll go before I do. But I just wanted to first find out, can I consume all my calories within 8 hours?
Right.
And then give my digestion system 16 hours to rest. Can I make sure, tracking on my Whoop band, that I'm burning 4,000 calories a day through my basal metabolism at rest, plus the walking twice a day and starting to work out? That's my goals right now. My goals don't go beyond trying to learn intermittent fasting and get to my goal weight, because I can't train at 277 pounds.
Right.
I have the work capacity of a dried prune. Just basically, I'm a raisin. If I can get to 265, I can start to work out again to get into the work capacity shape I need to train for a world record. So I'm a big believer in writing your goals down, looking at them every day, sharing them with other people, and say, look, I'm starting this journey. But beyond August 1st, I haven't made the new goals yet, because I need to get this first goal, get my body weight down, and start to build up my work capacity.
I first saw a low carb diet from you and John McEwen years ago.
Yep.
I've been doing keto since 2012 because I had some blood sugar issues, and it's been fantastic. I started intermittent fasting about 2 years ago. I do that same thing. So 7:30 is my last meal. I don't eat again until 12:30 after my first training session.
Right.
And I could not feel better.
Right.
And I'm not losing a ton of weight. I'm not gaining. I mean, I'm 245. That's where I sit, and I'm never hungry. You know, if I want to lose a little weight, all I have to do is tweak a calorie here or there.
Yeah.
But there's something to it. Didn't the Russians used to do that? They wouldn't eat before their first... I thought that was you who told me that.
It was.
They wouldn't eat before they threw.
Well, I threw against Sedik in New Zealand, and the hammer meet was at 6 o'clock at night. And he started at 8 a.m. with a piece of dry toast and a cup of coffee. Then he had a cup of coffee at 10, noon, then 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah. So he had 7 cups of coffee and a piece of dry toast the day of a competition. He told me that was because he didn't want anything interfering with his metabolism, with his blood sugar, with the supplements and the focus things that he was going to take before he competed. He wanted to compete hungry. That's how he felt best. And then he'd do a 7-day fast after every season at the end of the year to kind of give his endocrine system a chance to reset.
There's something to it. I feel better. I competed at Strongman Nationals and didn't eat anything the day of. Didn't eat till 8 o'clock at night that night. I've done probably 7 or 8 Highland Games in the last 2 years doing this, and I never eat till afterwards. And I never feel hungry. I never feel like my blood sugar's low.
Yeah.
So there's something to it, you know. I don't understand the science behind it. All I know is it works for me. So.
Right. And you've got to find... I mean, I roomed with a guy once on the Olympic team. He was a decathlon. I swear to God, he slept 15 hours a day. Every time I came back to the room, that dude was asleep. And I'm like, oh, his metabolism's going to be all screwed up. He's taking like 3 naps a day. All he does is sleep. Well, all he did was go out and win the gold medal.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
That couldn't work for me,
right?
But it worked for him. So you got to find out, you know, for everybody, you know, what that is. You know, when I compete, I like to have like 3 scrambled eggs and a couple pieces of bacon and 1 piece of toast about 5 or 6 hours before I compete. And then I will have some low-index carbohydrates through like an apple. Poliquin taught me 2 years ago that the apple is the perfect pre-workout carbohydrate because it's got such a low glycemic index that the sugar releases over about a 90-minute period to almost 3 hours, that it'll sustain some level, whereas like a banana, which is very high on the glycemic index rate, will spike. It's a great post-workout because your body replaces the glycogen stores that have been stripped away from the workout. So little tweaks like that, I've got to have a little something. And I'm a caffeine guy. I'm a Java Stim guy. Yeah. I was, back when ephedra was legal, there was not a pre-workout that I wouldn't try.
Yeah, right.
Tried the sidewalk cracker and all this other stuff.
Thins,
oh yeah, I've been looking at the new stuff, Loco that's supposed to come out next month, and so that stuff interests me from a personal standpoint, not from a coaching standpoint. I do like the effects of how I feel on caffeine.
You're a 60-year-old man. You're allowed to take whatever you want.
Exactly. So, I'm enjoying the process, and, I love that this is what I get to do for a living, and I don't want to go do it for anybody else.
Sure. Yeah. Like you said, your own boss. And
so are you.
It's been a life-changing experience for me.
Would you be willing to take a 25 or 40% pay increase and go be somebody else's second?
Because I'm to the point now where I make enough money.
So what?
And it wouldn't mean anything to me.
Wouldn't mean a single thing to me to go be somebody else. Exactly.
Do whatever I want to do, and nobody. You saw me when I was younger, growing up and throwing. I mean, I was an angry kid, man. I had a bad marriage. I had a bad job. I was throwing in the sport where I was throwing way above my level. There was no way I should have been competing with those guys, and it was super stressful. And then it started with finding the right girl and finding the right job, and then just snowballs. And now, like you said, I don't know how you could pay me to go work for somebody else.
That's my point.
Yeah.
People are, I don't understand how you turn down that kind of money or that kind of prestige. I said, if the amount of All-Americans and national champions and Olympic teams that I've created doesn't do enough for my ego, I don't need another ego boost. I need
fucking Logan.
I need to start giving back more and more and more. I need to create and branch out that tree and that legacy. And, I honestly believe that 20 years after I'm gone from this planet, my legacy will not be that I was a 4-time Olympian. It'll be the stories that the people that I've had a chance to interact with in my life go on and tell about me in my program. And, oh, by the way, he was a 4-time Olympian.
Right, yeah. That's immortality.
It'll never be the lead, right? So
that's your immortality, though.
I want my legacy to be my kids.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. Yeah. And like you said, with that ripple effect, and you affect this group of people here and this group of people here, and then they affect other people, and it just keeps spreading. And I think, going to Florida to be their next track coach or whatever is not going to.
It's not going to check any boxes for me.
No, right? Yeah.
I mean, we've all got unchecked boxes in our life that are left. That's not one of them for me.
Yeah. You're talking about Project 60 and breaking the world record. I found, obviously, over the years that my training has had to change pretty drastically in order to, make up for the fact that I'm 44, almost 45 years. What does training for you look like at almost 60 years old trying to break a world record?
Okay, so what used to be 50-50 between throwing and lifting, I threw, then I lifted. I threw, then I lifted, then I rested. I threw, then I lifted. I threw, then I lifted, then I rested. Now, the throwing has to be 80% of the training. The skill you're trying to break the world record in has to become the focal point of what you do. If you want to break the world record, you want to throw the hammer farther, you need to throw the hammer. Okay? So I don't believe that me doing 50-50 is going to be the best route to staying healthy. So the biggest thing is you can only train what you can recover from. I can't recover from the weight room. Okay? if I go in and start doing a 4-day-a-week lifting program, but I do want to throw. I do have to throw. When I look at the world records at age 50, everyone's like, you're going to crush him. I'm like, dude, that guy threw far.
Yeah. Right.
Okay? So, people are saying, what's the world record in the 20-pound weight throw? You're going to crush that. I'm like, I may beat it. The guy that threw the world record threw 79 feet.
How heavy is the weight?
20 pound.
That's a far distance.
That's a far distance.
Yeah.
That's the world record. A guy from Norway, Arlis Busterid is his name. And I don't think he was ever an Olympian, but I can tell you one thing that guy did do to throw 79 feet. He trained.
Yeah.
And so for me, the whole thing is I have to be able to train. I have to be able to train consistently. So if I go up and try to get an ego in the weight room, I'm going to kill myself.
Right.
I'm going to hurt myself doing a 405 back squat for a triple because I can.
Right.
Or maybe I can't.
But what does it carry over to that?
No carryover.
Yeah.
No, especially to the lighter implements. So when I go in and do my weight training, I make sure that the number one focus for the first 6 months is just regaining work capacity. Because right now, if I'm supposed to start throwing August 1st. If I go out, I can tell you exactly how many throws I'm going to be able to make. Somewhere between 9 and 12.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm going to start catching cramps and,
that's right,
and spasms.
Used to be like 20, 25 throws,
easy.
no problem.
Easy. But as I build my work capacity up through the weight room and throwing and overhead ball throws and pud throws, I'll start to build a volume that doesn't tear me down. Within 3 or 4 months, I'll be able to make 18, 20 throws and go, that's plenty. Yeah. Then I'll be able to go in the weight room and go, I need to get my posterior chain stronger. So today, I'm going to use a bar weight of 135 pounds, and I'm going to chain up. And so that I'm 400 pounds on the last 3 or 4 inches, which is the position you throw the hammer from anyways.
Right, yeah.
And I'm going to do some chain squats, and then I'm going to do some reverse hypers, and then I'm going to do some belt squat, and I'm going to just do the stuff that I know that I can recover from, and I will do some Olympic lifts. It's crazy because I saw you do a snatch the other day. I about choked on my coffee. Okay, so you did a Cuban muscle snatch.
Right, yeah.
You did a Poliquin press.
Yeah.
Which kind of looked like a snatch. I was actually quite impressed because I remember 15 years ago, I'm like, why'd I ever let that guy do my video with me? All he's doing is bashing Olympic lifting. Screw Valenti. I'm like, anybody that knows him, tell him I don't want any part of what he has to say anymore because he's cutting off something that is of deep belief to me.
Well, so my thing with Olympic lifting is that I'm not good at it, and I can't teach it very well because I know I can teach somebody to do a muscle up, but I can't do one.
Right.
But you don't want me teaching you to do a muscle up. And it's the same with the snatch and the clean and jerk. I have never had a rack position. I can't hold it. I can't drop under a bar.
Yeah.
I've gone to like all the seminars to teach you how to do it, but I just found it was easier for me to teach people to jump and box squat, and throw balls, and that kind of stuff.
Exactly. But I look at it this way. No one really taught me how to clean and snatch. I've never done a full clean in my life. Never done a full snatch in my life. But I felt the bar pulling off the ground like a deadlift and then continuing that into a second pull and to get that triple extension. And I felt what that did to me in the numbers and how far implements started going when I started doing things like that. So, I mean, there's a video online of me doing 160 kilos for 8 reps.
Yep. I posted that last year or something.
No matter how heavy the weight got, it never drove me down any farther than what rep 1 was because I don't know how to catch a clean.
Right, and you guys always seem to do your Olympic lifting where it's all, probably for athletes, the most important part. The explosion up, you hit your chest and then you bring it down. There's no risk of injury to your wrists or anything like that.
I tell kids the 3 things that Poliquin told me. Wrists under, elbows out, shoulders over the bar. If you can start with your wrists under, you're going to automatically create a scoop. Mm-hmm. The scoop keeps the bar to the legs. The reason people get hurt doing Olympic lifting is because their hands start to flare out as the bar goes, and it ends up 8 to 12 inches away from their legs and their chest. So Wrists under. Elbows out, help keep those wrists under. And keeping the shoulders over the bar longer creates the path of the bar and being able to hit the bar off the hips.
Yeah.
So Rich Holmes, a way smarter teacher of Olympic lifting than I am.
Right. And
he came in and did a 4-hour snatch seminar with my kids. And they're just like, okay, coach, do you want us to do this? And I said, learn what you can, but don't let your numbers fall.
Right. Yeah, because the primary focus is to make the ball go further, not to snatch more.
Exactly.
It's a tool in your chest, right? Talking about Poliquin a little bit, and like I said, I get all my Poliquin, and I've read some of his books, but I get all my Poliquin through you. When he took you on, he was not yet Charles Poliquin. He was
Charles Poliquin in Canada.
Okay, he wasn't the famous. I mean, I never heard of him until
he was not Charles Poliquin in the United States. That's for sure.
Yeah, he seemed to really come on over the years, but he talked about like the speed skaters he was working with, and you seem to be like the only track and field guy he was working with.
He wanted to get into track and field. He wanted to get into the United States. He knew there was a huge financial market to be gained. He was willing to kind of take me on for free, and to, he knew after meeting me that I would be somebody that would be spreading the word. I did everything he asked me with, just not even asking a question. Okay, I don't understand why you want me to go down 5 seconds in the squat and come up 5 seconds, but holy smokes, you're killing me here. Right. Excuse me.
Jud's dying.
Yeah. But when I started having the results that I did, I realized that there's a place for everything in training, all types of training. And
when you started doing the tempo stuff with, when I had kids there, and I'm like reading through your stuff, and I'm like, I don't understand this at all. And it took a lot of research to try to figure out what he was thinking with that, because it didn't make sense to me that we're doing slow eccentrics and then a pause sometimes and sometimes not a pause and then a slow, concentric, and it was just different from everything we had to do would be explosive.
25 years ago, and then Cal Dietz comes out with triphasic, and everyone's like, this is the smartest man on the planet, and he's basically rehashing what Poliquin said 25 years ago, that there has to be variety in training. I heard Charles answer a question once like this. Someone said to him, hey, can I ask you a question? Charles was like, sure. What's the best program out there? And he goes, all right, I can tell you. You cannot tell anyone else. And the guy's like, comes in a little bit closer, and Charles says, the one you're currently not doing.
Yeah, right.
And the guy goes, what do you mean? Think about it. And I got it right away.
Right, yeah.
It's like variety.
Yeah.
Like, if you're doing the cube method, and that's all you've ever done, and you come and ask me what the best program is, the program that's probably the least like the cube is going to be the one that potentially gets you to the next level.
Right. Yeah, you get that huge changing effect, and that's conjugate.
Yes, no doubt about it. It's I heard Louis say something the other day about with all the different variations in a certain lift that you could go, I think he said 800 PRs before you came back to the one you first started with.
Well, I just bought a bench the other day, and it was his bench with all the pin setups.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me hundreds of more variations on a bench press.
Right.
We can pin bench from all these different heights with all these different bars and chains and bands. If I just add this one piece of equipment, I've added hundreds of new options, before we have to come back to that.
Louis should be a multimillionaire by now. I think he's just coming to the sense that, man, I should have been doing some of the stuff I'm doing now a long time ago.
Yeah.
You look at guys like Dave Tate that beg Louis to capitalize on the West Side brand. He's like, I don't want any part of it. Do you care if I do? No, man, go do your thing.
Everybody who's making money in this sport came out of West Side.
Yeah.
So your Dave Tates, your Brandon Lillies, your Mark Bells, your Jim Wendlers. All these guys are West Side guys that are now making money doing it. And it's very difficult to, if you don't, I've had the privilege to be able to sit down with him and have dinner with him and whatever, but if you're not used to the way Louis speaks, and that you're going to ask him a question, he's going to go off on tangents in 15 different directions and never really answer your question, but there's so many nuggets of information in there. When you go to a seminar, you just better be ready for it.
Yeah.
But if you go listen to Matt Wenning or you go listen to Shane Sweat, you're going to ask him a question and you're going to get the right answer to your exact question. It's just a different... Louis is a thinker, and he's an experimenter. He's not a presenter.
Right. I remember I put Poliquin and Louis together for the first time. Charles asked for it. So we met at breakfast, and I put those two across from each other. I actually had to move 2 chairs over because I was taking so many notes.
Right.
I didn't want to be distracted. But, I mean, that was just an incredible moment because I've never seen anyone make Charles be quiet for longer than 15 seconds because he's always got a retort to prove you're wrong or let's move on because you're right. He let Louis go sometimes on 2 and 3 minute rants. Charles never lets anyone do that. He said Tim Ferriss did that to him.
Right.
Charles tells a great story. Charles went to a Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, I heard his podcast.
Yeah.
It was great.
And Tim Ferriss found out that Poliquin was there, and he says, isn't that the guy that fixes people's shoulders? He goes, my shoulder's killing me. So Charles came back, and he worked on Ferriss's shoulder, and Ferriss is like, how much do I owe you? And Charles was like, nothing, I'd rather just have a consult. And he goes, well, how long did you work on me? And he goes, 30 minutes. He goes, well, what do you normally charge for that? He goes, it's $500 an hour, $250. He goes, all right, you got 5 minutes, go. True story. And Ferriss was like, you got 5 minutes, go.
Right.
And Poliquin's like, and he just started asking questions.
Yeah.
And at 5 minutes, Ferriss cut him off.
Yeah.
And he said, maybe our paths will cross again. And they did.
Yeah.
And the question that Charles asked him was, how do I expand my business? And Ferriss told him that until you make more money when you're sleeping than when you're awake, you'll never be truly successful. And that's by creating centers.
Right.
And the supplement business he had at the Poliquin Group, he'd wake up and look at his bank account, and he had made more money sleeping than he had during his waking hours because of all the international sales.
Right.
And that all came from that one little 5 minute consult with Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
Is what really, I just find that story fascinating.
Talk about two guys who have their shit together and Tim Ferriss is amazing that he's got his hands in so many different branches of fitness and business and,
Two people wouldn't suck to be today, Joe
Right.
Rogan and Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I mean, I love what those guys are doing. I always think that, man, when I retire, maybe the podcast business might be for me.
It's fun. I thought when we started doing this, we would have 100 people listening, maybe from the gym. And it's weird to go places and have someone come, are you the Refined Savage guy? And they'll ask you that, and you're like, man, this is kind of cool, And it's always amazing me when I get numbers to see how many downloads we're actually getting. And you get an opportunity to reach out to all these people. And the cool thing is we're doing it mostly with people from Ohio.
Right.
They're not going on Joe Rogan's podcast or Mark Bell's podcast because they're in Ohio.
Right.
But there's plenty of you guys here that have a lot of shit to say that is valuable.
What's the number one most downloaded podcast to date?
Carrie Overfelt and Craig Smith. Still.
Man, well, Carrie is just going to be walking around.
More than Matt Wenning, more than Shane Sweat, I mean.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, if you've never listened to that one, we have a good time. And we had a couple cocktails. And,
nice.
Talked a lot of shit. And
well, hopefully we can get this one out there.
This one should be the most, I'm hoping this will be the most downloaded for sure. Before we wrap this up, I want you to tell a story, and I've heard it 100 times, and I actually asked a couple people, what should I ask Jud about? And they've all heard it a bunch of times. I want you to talk about the time when your last Olympics, when you thought it was over. If you could kind of relay that story to people.
Okay, so give me dangle one more element that you're looking for. Because I don't know exactly what you're asking.
Oh, about when you thought you were out, or when the guy said it's your 40th birthday? And,
okay, yeah. That was the Olympic trials in Sacramento, 2000. I had made 3 Olympic teams. I was coaching at Ashland University. My life was full. The kids on the team had never seen me throw before, and I started training again, and it was going really well. And I went to my wife and I said, I might try for one more Olympics. And she goes, where are they? And I said, Sydney, Australia. And she goes, go. Get out there. Yeah. I would love to go to Sydney, Australia. So I started training again. And so I go to the Olympic trials, 2000. It's on my birthday, July 19th. And everybody, it's like 103 degrees in Sacramento that day. Everybody's struggling a little bit. The order looks about the same. Lance Steele, Kevin McMahon, Jud Logan, Kevin Mannon, Jerry Ingles. The usual suspects are in it. And I start to feel a little comfortable that even though it's not a great number, it's looking like I'm going to make my 4th Olympic team. And the announcer is like, Jud Logan currently in 3rd place. This is round 5, and I make a throw and doesn't go any further. So I put my headphones on. I'm like, okay, round 6, I've got to be ready to go. And I look out of the corner of the eye and I see that I got passed. And I'm like, oh boy, I'm in 4th place. I need a big throw. And put my headphones back on, get ready to walk into the circle. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the ring for his 6th and final throw. It's his 41st birthday today. Currently in 5th place, Jud Logan. I go, 5th. And as I wind the hammer, I look up at the big board. Now, the wind takes about 3 seconds. The throw takes under 3 seconds. So I start to wind the hammer. I look up at the board, and I realize that Jerry Ingles from the U.S. Army program has gone above both me and Kevin Mannon, who I knew was already ahead of me. So I start to wind this thing in, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm in 5th place. And I start turning, and I let it go. There's a video on YouTube, and my arms are flailing all over the place, and I'm just yelling. And I walk out of the ring, my arms are up, and Jerry Ingles, who was in 3rd, was going to upset me and make the Olympic team, is looking at the mark, and he starts jumping up and down and pumping his fists, yelling that he's going to the Olympics. He's going to the Olympics. And the mark comes up, and my throw was 2 centimeters farther than his. And that put me into the spot on the Olympic team. That retired him for good. Yeah. He was so devastated, so crushed. Both the guys who finished 4th and 5th behind me and let a 41-year-old man keep them off the Olympic team, both retired. But, that was one of those situations where I'd never been in that situation where I only had the information seconds before I had to make a throw, and I had to be able to react to me. So I'm not sure if that's the story you were going at. Yep. But it was just an incredible day. I remember that was the first time I'd ever met Richard Soren, because he was there, and it's like his hand went all the way to my wrist, and that's what I remember about the 2000 Olympic trials was meeting him there, because Bert was there, getting a chance to compete against him and meet his old man, and there's a number of stories like that.
What was the LA when you were in the tunnel and we
were in the tunnel in the '84 Olympics, were the
Olympics, right?
First Olympics, opening ceremonies, 105,000 people watching in the stadium, millions more on television. We're the last country out, and all of a sudden there's little pieces of concrete that start falling from the tunnel, and I say to myself, I cannot believe I'm in an earthquake. And I turned to Mac Wilkins. I said, am I in an earthquake? And he goes, nah, you'll understand in a second. We walk outside the tunnel, and there's 105,000 people stomping their foot on the ground saying, USA, USA. You get 105,000 people doing that, walking out behind the American flag, and, Jesse Owens' granddaughter's bringing in the torch, hands it off to Rafer Johnson, the greatest decathlete in American history, who runs up and goes up the stanchions and lights the torch. And it was just an incredible feeling. I mean, I knew during that Olympic ceremonies, regardless of how the Olympics went, this was something that I wanted to pursue. Just that feeling in those opening ceremonies, and hearing Edwin Moses make that opening statement about the Olympic creed, and that it's not the place, it's the journey, it's the struggle. Meeting athletes from all over the world, having an opportunity to become friends with the late Sergei Lipanov, with Yuri Tam, with Sadiq, having an opportunity to travel to 24 different countries, to compete around the world, and to make lifelong friendships, and for that to be the vehicle that led me to what I was actually meant to do on this planet, and that is to help other people, be their light giver, be that opportunity to mentor these people. And, they get the good and the bad. People who in my program that want to become coaches, they get it all. I don't just sit there and go, here's the 10 good things.
Yeah, right.
You get, you
need the bad.
You need to know it all.
Yeah,
you need to know it all. And anybody that's had success in this business has had struggle in their life.
Yeah.
And, I've been through a lot of stuff that I went through after the 92 Olympics. And I think one of the reasons that I was welcomed back by the track and field community with open arms is because I never hid.
Yeah.
And I never lied. I did one of the the cardinal sins. I told the truth.
You never see that nowadays, though.
You don't. But when I tested positive for the asthma medication clenbuterol at the 92 Olympics, my statement to USA Today was, I absolutely took that. Mm-hmm. When I heard from the USA 2 months ago that it was on the banned list, I stopped taking that.
Right.
I apologized. I had coaches on the United States Olympic team saying there's studies that's showing that there's meat in Spain that's tainted with clenbuterol, and you should deny. Right. And I'm like, no way. Because you never come back from that.
I remember hearing this story from Peter Goodmanson, the shot putter from Iceland.
Yep.
And he told me that. He said, so many people got popped for that because it was like, it's illegal.
Yeah.
And everyone tried. And
2 months before.
Yeah. There's not much you could do.
There wasn't. And, the bottom line was, when I told the truth, and I was the first athlete in U.S. history to say, yes, I took that.
Yeah.
Think of all the positives that came before me. It was either my coach gave it to me, I had a tainted supplement, I got bad information, I didn't know what I was taking, and then there's me that's stupid enough to come out and say the truth. But then the next year, I was back watching the U.S. Nationals and getting thumbs up from people like Lance Deal, like, hey, good on you for saying you did it.
You kept your honor intact.
Right.
Which is
so I never felt like I needed to go hide and bury my head.
Right.
A lot of people who test positive in this sport don't feel like they can ever pop their head up again, or they're just going to get shots. And people still take the shots, but I've rectified all of that stuff with me.
Haters, you're always going to have haters out
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
And like we talked about earlier with my sport, was that it's out there, and if you think that if something's legal and there's nothing saying you can't take it, and you're trying to be the best guy in the world at throwing a fucking ball as far as you can, you're going to do it. That's because that's your life, and that's what you're training all this time for. Now, when they tell you it's illegal now, you stop.
You better.
Yeah, right. That's all you can do.
And those who can't are the ones that, have to live with the consequences. As long as you can live with the consequences, I'm not going to judge you that you didn't stop. Right? But don't go crying when the consequences come and say, oh, I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, and you take your risks. And there's guys that'll clear shit out of their system, like Louis was saying, in 8 days.
Yeah.
And it's out.
You got to deal with people like that. And there's people like me that obviously 2 months later,
it's still floating around.
Still floating around.
Well, I tell you what, when the book comes out, Can we do this again?
Oh.
I'd love to come down and do it again.
Absolutely.
Because I'm looking forward to that. And I wanted to thank you for coming on the show. I think this has been fantastic. And I think in the future, people will remember you as light giver and coach and, like you said, Olympic athlete secondary.
No doubt about it. Mark, thank you.
Thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.